Reciting. And so Suparna Mataji and Devi Mataji, if you're ready, please can you start reciting?
Sure.
Okay.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Chapter 4, Text 22. Yadrikshalabha santushto Dandvatito vimatsarah Samasiddhava siddhau cha Kritvapi na nibadyate.
He who is satisfied with gain which comes of its own accord, who is free from duality and does not envy, who is steady in both success and failure, is never entangled, although performing actions.
Text 23. Gatasangasya muktasya jnanavastita chetasah yajyacharatah karma samagram praviliyate.
The work of a man who is unattached to the modes of material nature and who is fully situated in transcendental knowledge merges entirely into transcendence.
Text 24. Brahma arpanam brahma havi brahmagnau brahmanahutam brahmaiva taina gantavyam brahma karma samadhina.
A person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities, in which the consummation is absolute and that which is offered is of the same spiritual nature.
Text 25. Daivameva pariyagyam yogina pariyupasate brahmagnava pariyagyam yajnaivopajuhati.
Some yogis perfectly worship the demigods by offering different sacrifices to them, and some offer sacrifices in the fire of the Supreme Brahman.
Text 26. Shrotraadinindriyanyane sanyam agnishu juhyati Shabdadina vishyanya indriyagnishu juhyati.
Some, the unadulterated brahmacharis, sacrifice the hearing process and the senses in the fire of mental control. And others, the regulated householders, sacrifice the objects of the senses in the fire of the senses.
Text 27. Sarvani indriya karmani prana karmani chapare atma sanyam yogna no juhyati jnanati pate.
Others, who are interested in achieving self-realization through control of the mind and senses, offer the functions of all the senses and of the life breath as oblations in the fire of the controlled mind.
Text 28. Dravayagya tapo yajna yoga yajna tatha pare Swadhyaya yagna yajnascha yatya samstita prata.
Having accepted strict vows, some become enlightened by sacrificing their possessions, and others by performing severe austerities, by practicing the yoga of eightfold mysticism, or by studying the Vedas to advance in transcendental knowledge.
Text 29. Apane juyati pranam prane panam tatha pare pranapan gati ruddhva pranayam parayanah apre niyata hara pranan praneshu juhati.
Still others who are inclined to the process of breath restraint to remain in trance, practice by offering the movement of the outgoing breath into incoming and the incoming breath into the outgoing, and thus at last remain in trance, stopping all breathing. Others, curtailing the eating process, offer the outgoing breath into itself as a sacrifice.
Text 30. Sarve apyete yagvidyo yagya chapit kalmashaha yagya shishtamrita bhujo yanti brahma sanatanam.
All these performers who knows the meaning of sacrifice become cleansed of sinful reactions. And having tasted the nectar of the results of sacrifices, they advance toward the supreme eternal atmosphere.
Text 31. Nayam loko astya yagyasya kunto anya kuru satam.
O best of the Kuru dynasty, without sacrifice, one can never live happily on this planet or in this life. What then of the next?
Text 32. Evam bahu vidya yagya vitata brahmano mukhe karmajana vitvetan sarvanaivam gyatva vimokshase.
All these different types of sacrifice are approved by the Vedas, and all of them are born of different types of work. Knowing them as such, you will become liberated.
Text 33. Shreyan dravyamaya yagya janan yajna parantapah sarvam karmakhilam partha jnane parisamapyate.
O chastiser of the enemy, the sacrifice performed in knowledge is better than the mere sacrifice of material possessions. After all, O son of Pritha, all sacrifices of work culminate in transcendental knowledge.
Text 34. Tadvidhi pranipaten pariprashnen sevayah उपदेक्ष्यन्ति ते ज्ञानं ज्ञानिनस्त्वदर्शिनः.
Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge into you because they have seen the truth.
Text 35. Yajkyatva na punarmohamevam yasyasi pandava yena bhutanya sheshani drakshasya atmane ato mahi.
Having obtained real knowledge from a self-realized soul, you will never fall again into such illusion. For by this knowledge you will see that all living beings are but part of the Supreme, or in other words, that they are mine.
Text 36. Api chedasi papebhya sarvebhya papakritamah sarvagyana plavenaiva vrijnam santarishyasi.
Even if you are considered to be the most sinful of all sinners, when you are situated in the boat of transcendental knowledge, you will be able to cross over the ocean of miseries.
Text 37. Yathai dadhamasi samitho gnir bhashma satkurute arjunah jnanagni sarva karmani bhasma satkurute tatha.
As a blazing fire turns firewood to ashes, O Arjuna, so does the fire of knowledge burn to ashes all reactions to material activities.
Text 38. Nahi jnanena sadrishyam pavitramiha vidyate tatsavayam yoga sansiddha kale natmani vindati.
In this world, there is nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. Such knowledge is the mature fruit of all mysticism. And one who has become accomplished in the practice of devotional service enjoys this knowledge within himself in due course of time.
Text 39. Shraddhava labhate jnanam tatpara sanyeta indriya jnanam ladva param shanti machirena tigachati.
A faithful man who is dedicated to transcendental knowledge and who subdues his senses is eligible to achieve such knowledge, and having achieved it, he quickly attains the supreme spiritual peace.
Text 40. Agyachasharathanascha samasyatma vinashati nayam loko asti na paro na sukham sanshayatmanah.
But ignorant and faithless persons who doubt the revealed scriptures do not attain God consciousness. They fall down. For the doubting soul, there is happiness neither in this world nor in the next.
Text 41. Yoga sannyasta karmanam jnana sanchina sanshayam atmavantam na karmani nibandhanti dhananjaya.
One who acts in devotional service, renouncing the fruits of his actions, and whose doubts have been destroyed by transcendental knowledge, is situated factually in the self. Thus, he is not bound by the reactions of work or conqueror of riches.
Text 42. Tasmat jnanam sambhutam hitastham jnana sanatmanah chitvainam sanshayam yogi yogam asti tostita bharatah.
Therefore, the doubts which have arisen in your heart out of ignorance should be slashed by the weapon of knowledge. Armed with yoga, O Bharat, stand and fight.
Thank you, Mataji, Suparna Mataji and Devi Mataji. Thank you very much. Wonderful. Thank you for your service. I hope you all are well. I'm seeing you after quite a long time. I'm sorry I could not come and do my service because I was just so busy with some other services. Okay. Just give me 1 minute while I get my slide up. Okay. Okay, can you all see the slides now?
Yes, Mataji. Yes, Mataji.
Thank you. Thank you. So today we are going to do verse number 29 from chapter 4. Let's recite. Chapter 4, verse 29. Apane juhavati pranam prane panam tatha pare pranapana gati rudva pranayam parayana apare niyataharaha pranan praneshu juvati. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. Still others who are inclined to the process of breath restraint to remain in trance practice by offering the movement of the outgoing breath into the incoming and the incoming breath into the outgoing, and thus at last remain in trance, stopping all breathing. Others, curtailing the eating process, offer the outgoing breath into itself as a sacrifice. Does anybody want to read the purport?
Can I read, Mataji, please?
Yes, Mitali Mataji. We can't hear you, Mitali Mataji. Think you've muted yourself? Hare Krishna.
Sorry, Mataji, I was muted. Sorry.
Okay.
The system of yoga for controlling the breathing process is called Pranayama. And in the beginning, it is practiced in the Hatha Yoga system through different seating postures. All of these processes are recommended for controlling the senses and for advancement in spiritual realization. This practice involves controlling the airs within the body so as to reverse the direction of their passage. The apana air goes downward and the prana air goes up. The pranayama yogi practices breathing the opposite way until the currents are neutralized into puraka, equilibrium. Offering the exhaled breath into the inhaled breath is called Riksaka. When both air currents are completely stopped, one is said to be in Kumbhaka Yoga. By practice of Kumbhaka Yoga, one can increase the duration of life for perfection in spiritual realization.
There is another page. Does somebody else want to read?
Can I read, Mataji?
Yes, please, Seema Mataji.
The intelligent yogi is interested in attaining perfection in one life without waiting for the next. For the practicing Kumbhaka Yoga, the yogis increase the duration of life by many, many years. A Krishna conscious person, however, being always situated in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, automatically becomes the control of the senses. His senses, being always engaged in the service of Krishna, have no chance of becoming otherwise engaged. So, at the end of the life, he is naturally transferred to the transcendental plane of Lord Krishna. Consequently, he makes no attempt to increase his longevity. He is at once raised to the platform of liberation, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 14.26. Mam chayu sorry, I can read it in Hindi, but in English, I find it difficult.
That's fine. That's fine. You can read the English. It's fine.
One who engages in unalloyed devotional service to the Lord transcends the mode of material nature and is immediately elevated to the spiritual platform. A Krishna conscious person, being from the transcendental stage, and he is constantly in that consciousness. Therefore, there is no falling down, and ultimately he enters into the abode of Lord without delay. The practice of reducing eating is automatically done when one eats only Krishna Prasadam, or food which is offered first to Lord. Reducing the eating process is very helpful in matter of sense control. And without sense control, there is no possibility of getting out of the material enlightenment. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Seema Mataji, and thank you, Mitali Mataji. Before we continue, we'll just recite our prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatirubhascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine. All right. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining today. It's wonderful that you are here every single day. I have missed quite a few days, but I'm back now. So the past few verses has been a discussion of various kinds of sacrifices. So Krishna has been talking about all these different kinds of sacrifices and how it is very, very important for everybody to perform sacrifices. Vedic times, it was a norm that everybody did various kinds of sacrifices. And even today, if you see, even in our ordinary life, we may not realize it, but we are performing sacrifices, or sacrifice in the sense that we are giving something in return for something that we get, which is what is being explained in the Gita also, that we perform sacrifices for the various demigods, and then in return we get some favor so that we can continue living our normal human life properly. So like in our one may ask, why is it that we have to give something? Like, let's say that we are using electricity, we are using water, so we have to pay taxes. Why is it that we need to pay taxes to the government? Well, simply because we are not the proprietor of these things. We don't own these things. We don't own the electricity that's coming to us. We don't own this water. It is being provided to us by somebody. Somebody else is responsible for it. Somebody else is the proprietor for it. So we are paying them for what we are using. So if you think about it, in our material life, we have to pay taxes. We have to pay for using whatever we are paying for the facilities. So in that sense, Krishna owns this entire world. He owns everything, right? And in the Isha Upanishad, there is a very beautiful verse saying this thing. It says, Ishavashyam idam sarvam yat kincha jagatyam jagat tena tyaktena bhunjita magrida kashyasvidhanam. So he's saying that everything animate or inanimate is controlled and owned by the Lord. Right? Now, the thing is, there is only two things in the world. Either there is material or spiritual, right? Animate or inanimate. Now, either material or spiritual, both is owned by Krishna. So when everything is owned by Krishna, then obviously we have to perform sacrifices or we pay, we perform austerities because we are taking something, right? And in the Bhagavad Gita also, we've reflected on these two verses very often, where Krishna is saying that, all this earth, water, fire, ether, they're all my material energies. And above this, there is also the spiritual, the superior energy of mind, which is the living entities, which is the spiritual energy. So everything, so, constantly, this is a constant theme in our scriptures where Krishna is saying that all of this belongs to me. I am the owner and I am the controller, right? Now, if you think about our material thing also, material life, let's say that you own a house and you've given that house on rent, right? So you are the owner and you expect that at the end of a certain period, the person who's renting the house is going to empty the house and the house is going to become yours again because you're the owner. But you don't really have control on the renter. Am I right in saying that a lot of time there are cases where the renter starts to claim to be the owner of the house and does not want to give the house back? So although you are the owner, you are not the controller. You don't have control. You lose control. Yes, eventually you may get it back by, fighting legal cases and doing all kinds of things. But so you're not always in control. However, the Supreme Lord, he is both the owner as well as the controller. So any normal human being who follows the rules will understand that if I am using something that belongs to somebody else, then I must perform sacrifice, right? Sacrifice is that I am voluntarily accepting certain temporary austerities or inconveniences, knowing that I will get permanent convenience. So I will voluntarily perform some sacrifices or perform some austerities, right? Now, the interesting thing and the important thing for us to understand is that sacrifice is inevitable. Prabhupada, in many of his lectures and his classes, would talk about this. Because when he says sacrifice, you could classify sacrifice as anything that you have to do for somebody else. Let's say that you're going to work, you're working hard. That also is sacrifice. It's not like you're doing it because, yes, I'm sure a lot of people enjoy work also. It doesn't mean that we don't enjoy work, but even that is a sacrifice. So like it says, this is very interesting. Sacrifice is inevitable. It is a part of life, right? Now, what is interesting here is the freedom to choose where you will make your sacrifices. So, in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 17th chapter, there is a lot of discussion about performing various activities in the different modes of material nature. So there we talk about charity that is performed in the mode of passion or mode of ignorance or mode of goodness. And it explains there that when you give charity to somebody who does not deserve charity, you still will get something in return. When you give charity to, let's say, a half Brahmin who is, at least he is performing some of the duties of a Brahmana, you will probably get 100 times in return. And if you give to a Brahmana who's well versed in the scriptures and following all the rules and regulations of the scriptures, then you will probably get hundreds and 100 times in return. But imagine if you're giving charity to the Supreme Lord, to the owner and the controller of everything that there is. So imagine what you will get in return. And that is why the idea is that the sacrifice that you're doing, you can choose. You have the freedom to choose where you're going to make the sacrifices, who you're going to sacrifice for. And as we study the Gita, the 4th chapter, as well as then when you go to the, the further chapter, especially the 6th chapter, which talks a lot about Ashtanga Yoga, because this verse is talking about Ashtanga Yoga, you will see that what is the sacrifice that is ultimately for our benefit, and what are the other kinds of sacrifice, what will they give us in return, and the ultimate sacrifice which we do for the Supreme Lord, what will that give us in return? So we will not go too much into that because that will be covered eventually, but just try and understand that we do have the freedom to choose. Now, in this verse, there is a lot of talk about the Ashtanga Yoga. And what is Ashtanga? Ashta means 8. So Ashtanga Yoga is this, the 8 limbs of yoga, which is, a lot of you might know this: yama, niyama, asana, pranayam, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. So this particular verse is talking a lot about the pranayam, the breath control. But as you can see, that the pranayam is the 4th step of Ashtanga Yoga. Before that, you have to have the yama, niyama, and asana. Now, yama is self-restraint. It says that a person who is able to restrain or control his senses, who is able to look at pebbles, and gold in the same way, is the person who can perform Ashtanga Yoga. Now, I am not at that stage. I don't know if any of you think that you are at that stage where, you have this equal vision, where you're so detached that pebbles on the road and gold is same to you, and you will treat both of them equally. So what we're trying to get here is that performance of Ashtanga Yoga is very, very difficult. It is not easy. And also, the norm now is that, especially in the West and also in India, that yoga is seen as something where you are, disciplining your body, trying to make your body, trying to control your body, trying to be like, have a healthy body. But in the purport, you will see that Prabhupada is saying that yoga is actually performed in order to come to a stage where you're able to control your senses and to advance in spiritual realization. As you can see, the next stages of Ashtanga Yoga after breath control is withdrawal of the senses. And then it is contemplation, meditation. Meditation on what? Meditation on the Supreme Lord. You don't meditate on just nothing, because that's not what you should be doing. Actual yoga, because yoga means yuga. Yoga comes from the term where it means to join with the Lord. So actual yoga is to come to a stage where you reach this stage of realizing that you are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. But nowadays, the practice of yoga has become more so that I can have control over my body. My body is healthy so that then I can enjoy my senses. You see, so it's completely going in the other direction. Initially, yoga was meant for spiritual realization, but nowadays that is not the case. And also, what we have to understand is that and Prabhupada also speaks about this, and we've spoken this on this forum, that to have no desire is very difficult, because it is our inherent nature that we will have desire, you see. But obviously, what we are trying to do here in Krishna consciousness or in Bhakti Yoga, Bhakti is also yoga. In Bhakti Yoga, what we're trying to do is we are trying to dovetail all our desires in such a way that it pleases Krishna. So we stop thinking about pleasing our senses, but we constantly think about pleasing Krishna. Because having no desire, that is not a true stage that one can reach at. There have been cases, and Prabhupada gives this example many times, that a lot of yogis, they go to the forest, they go to the mountains, they meditate, they are in solitary places, they are able to control their bodies and postures, they're able to perform various asanas, breath control, but eventually,
Recording in progress.
there's some sounds, eventually, because because the mind has no other engagement, and you cannot have an empty mind, so eventually they do fall down. And Prabhupada gives this example of many yogis who have actually detached and renounced the material life, then they come back. And yes, they are trying to do good and pious activities like, building hospitals or helping the normal people. But the point is that they do come back, because that renunciation is false renunciation, and one cannot sustain that kind of renunciation. So when we talk about desire, it is actually very interesting. It's a special kind of rope. And let's look at that from this example of the cow that we have here. Now, if you see that this cow is bound by a rope, and it's tied up, and it's got some amount of freedom, you see. So it can only perform its activities like, in that specific area. And you will notice that sometimes, it wants to break free, it wants to go beyond. And so it is very like, how do you say it, like not satisfied. It's not comfortable. It just wants to run around here and there. People, they think that by enjoying their senses, they will become more and more and more happy. But what you will see that when an animal like this, when an animal is left free and it is not bound, it will eventually roam around wherever, but come back again to where it actually needs to be. Now, desire is that kind of rope. If you force your desire, or if you force yourself to have no desire, then your mind becomes even more disturbed and distracted. However, if you give your mind satisfaction through activities that are pleasing to Krishna, so you're fulfilling your desire, but you are not performing activities that are not allowed. You're still following the rules and regulations. Like, let's take an example of eating. Majority of us do like to eat good food. A majority of us, there'll be very few who are not really much interested in food and they're okay with whatever. Majority of us like to indulge in having good food, right? That is a desire that we have. If you try to curtail this desire and say that I'm going to have only boiled vegetables, that's it for the rest of my life, it's a very, very difficult thing to do. It's not easy. You might be able to do it for a couple of days, months, years, even maybe. But that from inside, your mind is always thinking, when can I eat something nice? When can I do this? When can I, your mind is not content. However, if that same thing of eating food, if you take it that I'm going to have lovely prasad, which I first offer to Krishna, and then I have it. So what you've done here is that the rope that you're using, you have tied it, you have tied your mind, but what you've done is you've used this special kind of rope wherein your mind is not disturbed and your mind is satisfied. When your mind is satisfied, it is peaceful. And then it can, perform other activities in a peaceful state of mind, not thinking about how can I get the next thing that will attract my senses, that will satisfy my senses? Because what you're doing is you're not in a false way curtailing all your desires. You are giving into your desires, but in a Krishna conscious way. I hope this kind of makes sense.
It's like doing Bhishma Panchakrat, isn't it?
Yes, Bhagwati Mataji, true. It is true. So yeah, and obviously the Kartik Vrat, if people have followed the Kartik vow and whatever else, you're doing all these things because you are doing it to satisfy the Supreme Lord. The idea again is always developing the higher taste. You cannot give up something unless your desire to get something is higher. Otherwise, it'll be false. You may give up something for some time, but if you are not filling that gap with something higher, then because we are like that, we are conditioned beings, we will go back to doing what is not right. And that is why Prabhupada always said that you must engage yourself in something higher. Only then you can give up your lower activities, right? Now, this is something else that Prabhupada always says. If you listen to his lectures, this is a common theme that goes, where he says that we all are always serving somebody. A husband is serving his wife, the wife is serving the children are serving the parents, or the children are going to school, so they are serving the teachers, or serving themselves. We are constantly, because that is our constitutional position, that we are always serving somebody or the other, right? Now, the point again here is, we come back to the first slide where we say that we are serving somebody, but we have the freedom to choose whether we serve our senses or we serve the Supreme Lord. So here Prabhupada says that servant of Maya means servant of senses. And spiritual life means instead of becoming servant of Maya or servant of senses, we become the servant of Krishna or God. Now, why is it very, very important to control our senses? That's the most important thing to understand. The reason is that the senses are the worst kinds of master. No matter what you give to your senses, it will always ask for more and more and more. It is never satisfied. When you go to your office, you're working 9 to 5. After 5 o'clock, you are generally not expected to do anything more. You are allowed to then, go home, and it's your time then after 5 o'clock, right? However, the senses are such that you are actually serving them 24/7, but they are just never satisfied. The mind asks for something, you give that, and after some time, then the mind is not satisfied. It wants something else, constantly wants something else, right? It's just never ever satisfied. And many times I give the example of material things. Let's say that a new phone has come in the market, and you say, what, I just really really want this new phone, and I will be so happy and satisfied with this phone, so that's the only thing that I desire. That's what your mind is telling you. Soon as you get the new phone, right, and then you'll see that, oh, your friend has got this wonderful new car. And then your mind starts saying, you know what, actually, the car that I have is really old. It's not so nice. I wish I could just get this car. And I'm sure once I have this car, that's it. I don't want anything else. Your senses are such that no matter how much you give, it is never satisfied. It is like this fire that you keep pouring the ghee and you keep pouring the ghee. It's never enough, isn't it? The fire will just keep burning and asking for more and more and more ghee. So the thing is that we have to come to a stage as a human being in this human body. We've been given the intelligence to come to that stage to realize that by being the servant of the senses, I am not going to get anything. I may serve the senses all my life, but I'm not going to achieve anything out of it. So I have to come to a stage where I can control my senses. And this is a very beautiful verse from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, where it says that this is a prayer. And I will not read the whole prayer, but I'll just go to the very important part where it says, I have not been ashamed to serve my senses, nor I have even desired to give them up. You know, my desires were such. But now, oh my Lord, my intelligence has awakened and now I am giving them up. Due to transcendental intelligence, I now refuse to obey the unwanted orders of my desires, and I have come to you to surrender myself. So we have to come to that stage realizing that I will keep serving my senses, but I will never have any satisfaction because the senses are never satisfied. You know, in a normal day-to-day job, you have a retirement age. When you're serving the senses, there's no retirement age. You keep serving. And they don't even show you any mercy. It's not even like they tell you that I've got this, I'm happy, I'm satisfied, I don't want anything else. No, there's always more and more and more that you desire. That's the problem, right? So we can look at this example of how one is never satisfied by the story of two wonderful characters from our scriptures. I'm not sure how many of you will recognize this story, but let's look at these two stories in very briefly, because I know we also have to recite the Hare Krishna. Can all of you hear me?
Yes,
Yes, Mataji. Yes, Mataji.
Yes, Mataji.
Sorry, no, I just got a message that you've been signed out. So I was wondering what's happened. Right, okay. So yeah, we're going to look at this in short, very briefly, the story of these two wonderful characters from our scriptures. I know we have to recite the Damodar Ashtakam, so we'll try and make it really, really short. So in the Bhagavatam, there is the story of Maharaj Chitraketu. Now he was a king. So obviously as a king, he had everything. There was nothing that he did not have, right? But he was not satisfied. Why was he not satisfied? Because he did not have a son. So although he had all the riches, he had everything else, he had all the worldly pleasures, but he did not have a son. And like they say that you cannot satisfy a hungry man by garlanding him with beautiful roses. So same way, Chitraketu, though he had everything, because he desired a son, he was just never satisfied, you know. So the idea is how your senses will never be satisfied. There'll always be something that your senses desire, something that your mind desires, something that your mind tells you that this is lacking in your life. Some people may have all the wealth, but they may not have good health. So you desire health. Some may have good health and family and everything, but they may not have enough money, so you want money. Some people may not have a good job. There's always something in this material life that is lacking. That's the nature of this material world. It's been made like that. Like they say, dukkhalaya shashvatam. On the other hand, you have this wonderful story of Kolavecha Sridhar. Now, Kolavecha Sridhar was any money. He wasn't very rich or anything. But because he had the Lord in his heart, he was completely satisfied in whatever situation he was in. He used to sell banana and he used to sell banana leaves, and that's how he used to just make do, you know. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he was young, a young boy, Nimai, would come disguised as just a normal village boy to Kolavecha Sridhar and would, you know, bargain with him always and pay him much less for his items and take them away. And then one fine day, in his Mahaprakash Leela, when Mahaprabhu was displaying that I am actually Krishna, so he was displaying this to all his close associates, he also displayed, you know, that I am the same Krishna and Balaram that you pray to. He did that to Sridhar, and he asked him, Sridhar, you are such a wonderful devotee of mine, and I want to give you something. You know, I can give you all the riches in the world. And Sridhar said, no, I don't want that. And then Mahaprabhu kept on, but I want to give you this, I want to give you that, I want to make. And Sridhar said, I don't want anything, but if you insist so much, then the only thing that you can give me is that lifetime after lifetime, make me this banana seller where this child Nimai comes to me and steals the banana from me, so that I can see this wonderful image, this wonderful child Nimai, and that's all that I desire. So from these stories, what we're seeing is that there cannot be any contentment in this material world with material things. So because like we did discuss, the senses are never satisfied. However, if your heart is filled with devotion, with bhakti, then there is nothing else that you will desire. Then you will be completely satisfied. So that's the main thing. Now, so in this particular verse in the purport, if you notice very, very nicely, Prabhupada is giving us the, what is Ashtanga Yoga and then what is Krishna consciousness in that sense, if you look deeply. So what is being said over here is if you read the purport, it says that the purpose of Ashtanga Yoga is to control our senses. But in Krishna consciousness, the senses are automatically controlled. Because when you come to Krishna consciousness, the whole idea is how I can use all my senses in the service of Krishna. So your senses are automatically controlled, right? The second point is that at the end of life, a Krishna conscious person is naturally transferred to the transcendental plane of Lord Krishna. This is from the purport. Prabhupada is saying that. Consequently, he does not need to make any attempt to increase his life. These yogis, they are, performing all these austerities and whatever else, to increase their lifespans. But a Krishna conscious person does not need to do that because he is automatically transferred to the transcendental plane of Lord Krishna. And then the third point that Prabhupada is making in his purport is that a Krishna conscious person begins from the transcendental stage and he's constantly in that consciousness. But for Ashtanga Yoga, one has to come to the transcendental stage. One has to come to the stage of Samadhi. So you see how fortunate we are that we have been given this very, very simple process of Bhakti Yoga, of Krishna consciousness, where we don't have to perform all these various kinds of yama, niyama, pranayama, controlling our breath, going to a secluded place, sitting on this kusagras mat and trying to, control our mind and meditate. All we have to do is whatever senses we have, just use them in the satisfaction of Krishna. By that, our own senses are also completely satisfied. We get happiness as well. So it's not like you are renouncing something, you stop eating, you stop talking. Like in India, we have a lot of yogis who take the Maun Vrat, they don't speak. And then Prabhupada, in one of his lectures, he says they don't speak, and then they get a pen and paper and start writing everything. That is not the meaning of Maun Vrat. Maun means that you stop communicating completely. Doesn't mean that you stop communicating by orally speaking, but you continue by like writing or by actions or by your eye movement or hand movements or something like that. So the whole idea of Bhakti Yoga and Krishna consciousness is, yes, controlling your senses, but controlling your senses by dovetailing them in the service of the Supreme Lord. So I shall stop here. It is 41. If there are any questions, comments, corrections, please, you can unmute yourself. And
yes, Mataji.
Yes, Jolie Mataji.
Just what you just said about you shouldn't increase your lifespan. What about chemicals, medical treatment and surgery and things like that? Because I think Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada encouraged people to take up treatment. Isn't that right?
Yes. Jolie Mataji, one thing we have to understand, and this here again reminds me the story of this farmer When there was a flood, the farmer was sitting in his hut and he said that, I'm waiting for Krishna to come and save me. And although there were so many other people who took their boats up to him and said, please come, the water is rising, you will die, please come. And he refused because he said he's waiting for Krishna. So the point here is that we also have to understand that this human body, our body, is a temple of God, right? That's why we mark our body. So we have to look after ourselves. We have to do the best that we can to look after ourselves, but also don't go to extreme measures to think that, like I've heard a lot of people, a lot of classes, where we're saying that don't go to extreme measures to looking after just your physical self. The main you is the soul. Are you looking after your soul? So just by doing all these physical things is not enough. Saying that, it does not mean that when you fall ill, you do not take any, medical intervention. Of course you do all of that. Of course you do all of that. So no, it does not mean that you don't. You do take medical intervention, but you do accept that whatever is happening is Krishna's will and Krishna's mercy. And that is why you will see that when devotees, even when they are ill, the idea is, the consciousness still is that you're not complaining about it, or you're not upset and fighting about it. You are accepting it as Krishna's will. You do what is needed to be done, but the result, you offer it to Krishna. Whatever the result, Krishna, I accept it. If I live, it's for your service. If I don't, then you have other plans for me.
Hare Krishna. And the word sacrifice, I did ask this question before. It's kind of confusing to me, because there's nothing that, if you think about Krishna consciousness and the spiritual side, there's nothing that we own that we should sacrifice.
Correct.
So that's what I believe.
That's the whole idea, and that is what we need to understand. And that's why in Ishopanishad it says that, Krishna is the owner. He's allowing you to take things. So when you're actually, sacrifice means, it's actually your consciousness. It's not the physical things that you're doing or you're giving. It's the consciousness, your consciousness, where you understand that everything belongs to Krishna, and that is why I must be in Krishna's service. So the main thing I always say is changing your consciousness. So here again, sacrifice does not mean that you're physically sacrificing some things, but mentally, spiritually, your consciousness is that, Krishna, this belongs to you. Please give me the intelligence that I can use this in your service. That's sacrifice. That is the austerity. That the austerity is that I don't use these things in pleasing my senses, but I use everything in your service. Prabhupada always gave the example that, this microphone or this dictaphone that I have, I'm using this in Krishna's service. It could be used in other things also. So the sacrifice that I am making here is that I'm using it in Krishna's service. That's the sacrifice.
Does the sacrificing lives, like in animal lives, apply to the spiritual sense, to the senses?
If you're sacrificing animal lives to enjoy it, like if you want to eat, then obviously it is you are satisfying your senses. Right. And in Kali Yuga, in the Shastras, it has been clearly said that there should be no form of animal sacrifice, because in Kali Yuga, we don't have those kind of learned brahmanas who are able to perform animal sacrifices so that it benefits the animal. And thus, animal sacrifice in Kali Yuga is totally not done, should not be done.
It's not acceptable.
Not acceptable. Yeah.
Thank you, Mataji. One wonderful class. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stirred up a lot of questions in one's mind.
No, that's good. That's good. That's good, because when we discuss it, everybody benefits. So it's good.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Nice to have you back.
Thank you. Thank you. I have one question on the chat before we go to any other, is that I don't know the name, but it says, if those that start with Ashtanga Yoga eventually have to come to Bhakti Yoga, why do they not start with Bhakti Yoga? The reason is that Bhakti Yoga, is something that is only fortunate people get that chance, because if they meet a devotee, Prabhupada says that, if you meet a devotee, then you are lucky that you will get the Bhakti Lata Beej. Otherwise, you will just be stuck in following the rungs of the yoga ladder. So you might start from wherever you are, whether it is Ashtanga Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and then finally go up. Yes, the best is Bhakti Yoga, and that is why all of us here on this call are very fortunate that we've been given this by the mercy of Prabhupada and mercy of all the other acharyas and ISKCON, that we've been given Bhakti Yoga as a gift, and we should accept it and realize how fortunate we are, because otherwise we would also be like everybody else, trying and struggling, with all these other stages of yoga and trying someday to come to Bhakti Yoga. So yes, one should start with Bhakti Yoga if we are fortunate to get that opportunity. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna Mataji, my humble obeisances to you.
Hare Rupa Mataji.
It's so nice to have you back, to hear your voice, sweet voice. It was a wonderful class, very nice class. And I really like that, like the more you want to satisfy the senses are never satisfied. I think in one of the chapters in the Bhagavad Gita, it's mentioned, isn't it? Asha Pasha Shate Baddha. That means, so much of desires, and I think it's in the demonic nature or something.
Yeah. So much of desires I have fulfilled, so much more I want to do, and yes, it is never satisfied. Yes.
Yeah, that is very important to know as a fact, as a kind of scientific fact or something, isn't it? Then we can check ourselves.
Yes.
So when I was in school a long time ago, when I was in school, I used to think, because in India that time, we used to go to a temple, we used to come back, and I used to think, what is this? And then kind of, you learn from others that, okay, you go to a temple, you ask for something, because it was so vague. I was never satisfied with that kind of worship. And I used to think, okay, now, when you're a child, you want, I was in a very competitive school. So it was, you want some marks, like, okay, can I get 90% in maths or whatever, 100% in maths? Can I get this much in science? So I used to think, okay, now I'm asking for, okay, 90 in maths or 100 in science or whatever it is. Later on in my life, I will ask for something else. And I used to think, what kind of this long list we are giving to God? It's just not worship. And I used to think, oh, how can I get, like I used to think the Christians have the Bible. Yeah, I know the Hindus' book is Gita, but I never saw Gita in my life in India. So I used to always think in my head, whenever I used to get something sacred lines from any book or newspaper, sacred space or something, I used to love them. And I used to think, where can I get some information about, what is actually, worshipping God? And yeah, Krishna answered my prayers, I think.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Krishna.
Yeah. That's good, Rupa Mataji. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
There is again a question, and I don't have the name, but it says, how is curtailing the eating process the same as offering the outgoing breath? It doesn't really say it is the same. What it says in the translation is, others curtailing the eating process offer the outgoing breath into itself as a sacrifice. So it does not say it is the same. So what it is talking about, I'm not a yogi and I'm not an authority, but what it's saying is that, we know of yogis who kind of stop eating. First, they reduce eating, then they completely stop eating. So they curtail their eating process, and then they control their outgoing and incoming breath. So I think that's what it's talking about in the translation, if that makes sense. All right, another question from Surabhi Mataji says, curbing our senses, what about duty to self? Also, will not unfulfilled desires crop up in our next life? Yes, Surabhi Mataji, very, very true that what about duty to oneself? And that is why we are talking about Krishna consciousness. Now, if you see any of us aspiring devotees, I call myself, I'm not a devotee, I'm trying to be a devotee. But if you see me or, us devotees, you won't see us unhappy. You won't see that we're not doing things that we like doing. We We have lovely prasadam. We have lovely sangha. We've got great friends. We go away. So we have holidays. We do all of those things. But the idea is having Krishna in the center. Like I wasn't here because I was in Hungary. So I was on a holiday with friends, so with devotee friends. And rather than going to, and I'm not saying that that's not nice, but for me, what I desired to do was go to this Krishna Valley. This is ISKCON center in Hungary, started by His Holiness Shivram Maharaj. And it has one of the most beautiful temples there, beautiful deities. So I spent a week over there. It was a holiday for me, but again, with Krishna in the center. So I did enjoy myself. I did have lovely prasad. I had a great time with my friends. I met so many wonderful people. So I am, enjoying my senses under the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness. And that is what it says, right? So curbing the senses, and that is why falsely curbing your senses, where falsely you try to give up all your desires, is not recommended. I'm going to just answer this one question and then we'll go to Damodar Ashtakam. I don't want to delay further. It says unfulfilled desires will crop up in next life. Yes, unfulfilled desires will crop up and they go with us, and based on our desires we get our next body. And that is why it is so important. As a human being, you've been given the intelligence to then use. That is why use all your desires. Your desire eventually should just be, how can I please Krishna? And the moment you get, all your senses are limited to just one statement, how can I please Krishna? Then in your next life, hopefully, you will be given a body which will only be used for pleasing Krishna. And that is why Krishna consciousness is so important for all of us as human beings to practice. Animals haven't got that intelligence, but we have been given this intelligence. And the human body you get after many lifetimes. So don't waste this. Use this just to see how you can please Krishna. Put Krishna in the center of everything, and you will see that everything just falls to plan. You don't have to worry. Krishna will arrange everything.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, your trip to Hungary sounds so fulfilling.
It was.
And that's because you put Krishna in the center.
Yes.
And we forgive you for going.
Thank you so much, Joli Mataji. But yes, it was absolutely amazing. Absolutely
Oh, how
amazing.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
We have to all do that kind of trips with our friends.
Definitely. It's so important. It's if you don't take from people, then you can't give. So you always, that's why I always say that we've spoken about friendships, and I always say you must have different kinds of friends. Some friends from whom you can look up to, you can ask for guidance, you can take from them. And when you take from them, you have something to give to others then. So you need that all the time.
Yeah, it took me a long, nearly a lifetime to actually take. I'm always being given because that's what I believed in.
You have to take to
conditioned in doing.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you, Mataji. Wonderful.
Thank you. All right. If there are any burning questions, like I say, I always welcome text messages. Anybody's welcome to just send me a text, and I'm willing to answer all questions. I have no problem.
Thank you for the answer, Mataji.
No
Nice to see you
problem.
again. I just have had one question. People who don't believe in image worship, can they just focus on the light or something like that,
Yes.
You said keep Krishna in the center. And people who don't believe much in image worship, what are they supposed to do? But they are on that path. They are on that path. They believe in a light, actually.
Yeah.
But not in a specific image. So what are they supposed to do?
So we will see in Bhagavad Gita, we must have seen already that realization of the absolute truth is in 3 stages, right? So there is Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So the people who are focusing on this light are at the stage of Brahman. There is nothing wrong with that, but they haven't as yet reached the stage where they see the absolute truth in all its fullness. Like an example is that when you are traveling by car and you see this big mountain in front of you, what you see at that time is just this shape. You think there's this mountain, you don't know what it is. You go closer, you see the trees. You go further close, you're literally on the mountain. You will see there are houses, there's animals, there's people staying there. All of these 3 stages, where first you saw just this big shape, it wasn't wrong. It was right. Your understanding of the mountain, that it is this high thing, is right. The second stage, where you said, oh, this mountain has got so many trees, that is correct. Yes, it has trees. The third stage, where you saw that the mountain has got trees, it's also got houses, it's got human beings, it's got animals. That's the final stage. So you've realized the mountain, you've seen this mountain in 3 different stages, but the final stage is the complete reality, where you're seeing everything for as it is. But the first stage of realization is not wrong. So the people who are just focusing on this light are on the stage of Brahman, where they are seeing this light, which is fine. They will hopefully eventually come to the stage of Paramatma, where they will see that there is the Supreme Lord in each and every living entity. And then eventually they will come to the personal stage of Bhagwan, where they will see that, the Lord is a person. He is a person. And they will start to have a relation with that person. Right?
It has a face, and I mean,
correct.
Hard to imagine.
It'll happen, Surabhi Mataji. It'll happen. Trust me, we've all been through these stages. It will happen. Just stick to this. That's it.
Thank you so much. And about the unfulfilled desires, why is it? I mean, why can't anyone? I mean, if one has too many unfulfilled desires, it can breed, contempt,
yes,
bitterness, anger.
Yes.
And to resolve all those, if one is taking some steps, and it looks like, it's supposedly wrong. So how can they solve this? And if fulfillment of needs is not allowed here.
Oh, Surabhi Mataji, no, don't get this wrong. It's not that fulfillment of needs is not allowed. And I have spoken about this earlier. I've said, no, yeah, go on.
Finance is important.
Yes.
And
yes,
in the same way, so many other things are important. And if you just keep curbing them, they will automatically, catch up in the next life.
Yes.
For some people, kids are important,
Yes.
And they don't have kids, and and the list goes on.
Yeah. No. So let me answer your question. We have dealt with this topic earlier, but probably you were not on the session at that time. But
I joined, I think 2 or 3 months back.
Yeah. So probably you were not there. But I'll tell you one thing. Don't think that Krishna consciousness is telling you that you should not have ambitions, that you should not have money, that you should not desire to have children. It does not tell you that. A lot of our Krishna conscious devotees are very, very, very highly placed individuals, are very rich. We've got some very big industrialists in India who are devotees. So Krishna consciousness does not tell you that you cannot earn money, that you cannot do but the whole idea is, look at these people who are industrialists who have money. They are trying to use this money for Krishna conscious activities. Yes, I have children. I am trying as much as I can to bring my children into Krishna consciousness. I am very, very ambitious. I'm at a very high post in a great company. I'm trying to use my influence to make people Krishna conscious. The idea is that wherever you are, and that is why Krishna consciousness says, Sthane sthita. It does not tell people to renounce. It does not tell people come and join the temple, become brahmacharis, become sannyasis. No. Wherever you are, see how you can develop your own Krishna consciousness and encourage other people to take to Krishna consciousness. That's all that it is. So don't curb your desires, but your desires should not be to fulfill your senses. Your desire to earn money should not be so that I can enjoy the money by going on holidays or having dinner out every day in the most expensive restaurants. But my desire to earn money is so that I can go on pilgrimage, I can help the temples, I can give money to the sannyasis, to the brahmacharis. So it's money, but being used in Krishna conscious activities. Don't curb your ambition to become top in your field, because if you're top in your field, people will look up to you. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that what a great man does, a common man follows. Become a great man so that common man follows. Become such a great man that you are Krishna conscious. Everybody else will think, you know, why is she doing this? She's so great and she's following. There must be something there. I want to know that. Right?
Well, for me, I find a lot of peace, when I come here every day. I don't
Yeah.
understand much, actually. I don't understand anything. I understand just 1%, but I do find a lot of peace that, I was searching for just peace. I just come here for peace, So I find it very peaceful to hear all the verses and songs, especially. Thank you so much for the answer.
It is a process. So it is a process. You will come to the stage one day where you will realize that, we are not curbing our desires. And that is why Prabhupada says, don't artificially curb your desires, but, just dovetail your desires to fulfill the desire of Krishna and his devotees. And you will see how much joy you get in that. But don't worry, it is a process. It will happen. And now I am just going to share the screen for Damodar Ashtakam. I am really sorry. I was trying to, make it quick, but we had many questions, but here we are. Madan Mohan Prabhu, I know you're singing the Damodar Ashtakam today. So if you can unmute yourself and sing. I really sincerely apologize for the delay.
No problem at all, Mataji. Hare Krishna, everyone. So I think it was a pleasure to listen to you and also to the various questions. So I thought before we start, let's really close our eyes and bring our hands close to our heart and meditate on the form of Lord Damodar, whom we worship in the month of Kartik. Let's seek his mercy. Namamishwaram Sachitanandarupam Lasat Kundalam Gokule Brajamanam Yashodabiyolukaladavamanam Paramishtam Atyantato Dritya Gopya Rudantam Muhurnitra Yugmam Rijantam Karambojayugmena Satankanetram Muhosvasakampa Trirekakakanta Stita Graivam Damodaram Bhaktibadam Iti Driksvalilabir Ananda Kunde Swagosham Nimajantam Akyapayantam Tadiyeshitagneshu Bhaktairjitatvam Puna Prematastam Satavriti Vande Varam Deva Moksham Na Mokshavadim Va Na Chanyam Vrineham Varesedapiha Idam Teva Puranatha Gopala Balam Sada Me Manasya Verashtam Kimanye Idam te mukhumbojam atyanta nilair vritam kuntalai snigdha raktaischa gopya muhoschumbitam bimba raktadharam me manasya verashtam alam lakshalabhai Namo Deva Damodarananta Vishnu Prasida Prabho Dukkha Jalabdimagnam Kripa Drishti Vitsyati Dinam Batano गृहनेशमामज्ञम् यदि यक्षिदृश्यै कुबेरात्मजौ बद्धमूर्त्यवयद्वत् त्वयमोचितौ भक्तिभजौ कृतौ च तथा प्रेम भक्तिं स्वकं मे प्रयच्छ न मोक्षे ग्रहो मेऽस्ति दामोदरेह नमस्तेऽस्तु धाम्ने स्फुरदीप्तिधाम्ने त्वदीयोदराय विश्वास्य दाम्ने नमो राधिकायै त्वदीया प्रियायै नमो नन्तलीलाय देवाय तुभ्यम् नमामीश्वरं सच्चिदानन्दरूपं लसत्कुण्डलं गोकुले व्रजमानम् यशोदाभियोलुकलादवमानं परमिष्टम् अत्यन्ततो धृत्य गोप्य हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 रामा राम राम हरे हरे जय राधा दामोदर राधा दामोदर श्री राधे जय यशोदा दामोदर यशोदा दामोदर श्री राधे जय राधा गोकुल नंद राधा गोकुल नंद श्री राधे जय सीताराम लक्ष्मण हनुमान जय सीताराम लक्ष्मण हनुमान जय गौरनिताय जय गौरनिताय नित्य गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्य गौर हरि बोल नित्य गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्य गौर हरि बोल जय प्रभुपाद जय जय प्रभुपाद हरे कृष्णा
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. That was wonderful. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Jyoti Mataji. Thank you.
To the Supreme Lord, whose form is the embodiment of eternal existence, knowledge, and bliss, whose shark-shaped earrings are swinging to and fro, who is beautifully shining in the divine realm of Gokul, who I, due to the offense of breaking the pot of yogurt that his mother was churning into butter, and then stealing the butter that was kept hanging from a swing, is equally running from the wooden grinding mortar is in fear of Mother Yashoda, but who has been caught from behind by her who ran after him with greater speed. To that Supreme Lord, Sri Damodar, I offer my humble obeisances. Seeing the whipping stick in his mother's hand, he is crying and rubbing his eyes again and again with his two lotus hands. His eyes are filled with fear, and the necklace of pearls around his neck, which is marked with 3 lines like a conch shell, is shaking because of his quick breathing due to crying. To the Supreme Lord Sri Damodara, whose belly is bound not with ropes but with his mother's pure love, I offer my humble obeisances. By which childhood pastimes as this he is drowning the inhabitants of Gokula in pools of ecstasy and is revealing to those devotees who are absorbed in knowledge of his supreme majesty and opulence that he is only conquered by devotees whose pure love is I'm lost, whose pure love is imbued with intimacy and is free from all conceptions of awe and reverence. With great love, I again offer my obeisances to Lord Damodara hundreds and hundreds of times. O Lord, although you are able to give all kinds of benedictions, I do not pray to you for the boon of impersonal liberation, nor the higher liberation of eternal life in Vaikuntha, nor any other boon which may be obtained by executing the 9 processes of bhakti. O Lord, I simply wish that this form of yours as Bal Gopal in Vrindavan may ever be manifest in my heart. For what is the use to me of any other boon besides this? O Lord, your lotus face, which is encircled by locks of soft black hair, tinged with red, is kissed again and again by Mother Yashoda, and your lips are reddish like the bimba fruit. May this beautiful vision of your lotus face be ever manifest in my heart. Thousands and thousands of other benedictions are of no use to me. O Supreme Godhead, I offer my obeisances unto you, O Damodara, O Ananta, O Vishnu, O Master, O my Lord. Be pleased upon me by showering your glance of mercy upon me. Sorry.
Can't hear you, Jyoti Mataji.
Jyoti Mataji, are you okay? Shall I carry on reading for you, Jyoti Mataji? I know you're going through a difficult time now, so I'll carry on reading for you, Jyoti Mataji, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
Okay, where did you stop on number 5, is it? O Lord, your lotus face, which is encircled.
Number 6.
Number 6, okay.
Please.
O Supreme Godhead, I offer my obeisances unto you, O Damodara, O Ananta, O Vishnu, O Master, O my Lord, be pleased upon me by showering your glance of mercy upon me. Deliver this poor ignorant fool who is immersed in an ocean of worldly sorrows and become visible to my eyes. O Lord Damodara, just as the 2 sons of Kuvera, Manigriva and Nalakuvera, were delivered from the curse of Narada and made into great devotees by you, in your form as a baby, tied with rope to a wooden grinding mortar, in the same way, please give to me your own prema bhakti. I only long for this and have no desire for any kind of liberation. O Lord Damodara, I first of all offer my obeisances to the brilliantly effulgent rope which binds your belly. I then offer my obeisances to your belly, which is the abode of the entire universe. I humbly bow down to your most beloved Srimati Radharani, and I offer, sorry, I can't, it's blocked. O Lord Damodara, I first of all offer my obeisances to the brilliantly effulgent rope which binds your belly. I then offer my obeisances to your belly, which is the abode of the entire universe. I humbly bow down to your most beloved Srimati Radharani, and I offer all obeisances to you, the Supreme Lord, who displays unlimited pastimes. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Santosh Mataji. Thank you, Jyoti Mataji. I hope you're okay.
Yes, I'm okay. I'm so sorry. I couldn't continue. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay, Jyoti Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I think we should now sign out. It's really, really late. Vancha kalpatrubhascha kripa sindhu bheva patika nam pavane.
No, no, Namo Namaha.
Thank you.
Krishna, everyone.
Hare
Thank you very much.
Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Hare Krishna.